That's all. So, hello everybody and welcome. Just big thank you to Rabab for putting this together today and to be able to be in a room with so many of you, and hopefully our talk sheds a lot of light on what we do and how you can work with us, but also what it is that you can do to kind of better your business. So as Rabab said, I'm Rachel Brown and this is Deepa Bhatia, and we're the co-founders of Capsule Arts. I sit in the position as creative director and Deepa is our managing director. So a lot of the time I'm the one kind of leading the design team, and Deepa is very kind of commercial and production and execution based. But we do have a large team with us now of around 35 people. So we've grown that over the past 10 years. So we do have, we've grown as we work on more and more projects, and we'll take you a bit more through that. But essentially, Capsule Arts, we are the region's largest and leading arts consultancy, and we enhance spaces with art. Quite simply, that's what we do. So, space to inspire. Okay, this is our purpose at the end of the day. And when an artwork inspires you, it's a visceral experience, and you create a deep emotional connection to that art, which becomes a connection to the space, and ultimately becomes a connection to the brand. And that has a much longer lasting impact. And that's really what we're about doing on commercial interior design projects, or could be commercial public space projects. It's really about creating a space to inspire. So that's our kind of purpose. And obviously we feel that art is an incredible and powerful thing to do that with. So we're just going to give you a little bit of a background as to Deepa and I. I was working in the UK within the creative industries, arts and culture. I come from actually a background as an artist myself. I trained in textile art. So those of you who know me who are textile artists, that is where my true passion lies. So that's where I came from, and I came to Dubai in 2007. And back when I came here, Art Dubai had its first year. There was a handful of galleries. And that's really, all there was. It was very, very at the beginning of what we now see as Dubai's art scene. I was working for a well-known gallery, an art studio at the time, and I was predominantly working on exhibition curation and arts programming. So at the time, we were a gallery that was known for working a lot with local artists, putting on exhibitions. We started the first artist residency. We would host events for anyone from the poetry community, the drama community, the visual arts community. So we were very kind of across the creative arts. After about 5 years, instantly I would say Deepa was also working in the same art studio at the time, and that's where we met each other. After about 5 years of working within that, I'll be honest, I was feeling pretty deflated. I was going out and I was doing a lot of pitches for sponsorship, or a lot of pitches to get, I suppose, the finances to be able to put some of these exhibitions on, or public art murals, because at the time there was zilch in terms of that kind of stuff. And I was pretty deflated because a lot of the attention and a lot of the finances were going towards the big dogs in the community. And as we know, Dubai, especially then, it became a very kind of top-heavy arts community. And I am a very strong believer that for an arts community or for arts and culture to thrive, you need multi-layers within that city. And I felt that the grassroots was being neglected. And so, Deepa and I were coming at, working with local artists from different perspectives. She was already working with local artists on projects. And so for me, I felt that that's what I would bring to the business. And Deepa and I working together, we felt really empowered, actually, that we had an opportunity working on projects that we would be able to bring in local artists, and it would be a way for them to start to build a sustainable career towards being full-time artists. Now, our our company is not responsible solely, but I do feel proud that we've had some part to play and some impact in artists now actually being able to become full-time artists and leaving their job behind. And every time I hear of an artist that has just given up their job and they're going full-time, I'm so happy, and it makes me very, very excited in that. You know, there have been a lot of changes for good, the golden visas for creatives and artists and all of those things, but I still think Dubai has a long way to go in terms of supporting its local community. So I hope that we have a part to play, at least in some part. It's okay. These things are important. So Deepa and I had, you know, we'd been working in parallel, but we had a very we shared a lot of the same values, we had the same work ethic, and so it was a natural thing for us to then start a business, and that's when Capsule Arts was born. That was about 10 years ago now. And I'll be honest with you, because honesty I think is important in this conversation. When we first started, I don't know how many of you remember, we actually started off by building a limited edition print collection, and we also were doing commercial projects with art. And after a couple of rounds of doing the print collection, we'd had some sales, but it was very evident to us that to make that a success, we had to plow a lot of time and energy into that. And I'll be honest, I don't think Dubai was quite ready for that then. I think if we were releasing that today, it maybe would be a different story. But starting off as a new company and launching that, actually it was a lot to bite off at one time. So, you know, business decision, we decided that our expertise lied in arts consultancy for commercial interior design projects, and that's what we forged on with. And that's obviously now our main emphasis today. We always knew that we wanted to work with local artists and we wanted to bring them into a project, because for us, I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but for us, it brings such authenticity to a project. So it's not just the fact that I would say we're now working across the GCC and Africa. So our spread is getting wider and we're working with more artists from those regions, not just from within Dubai itself. And I think that is it on my notes. You know, I think I do still feel that there is a bit of a lack of support for local artists, and you know, I think it will grow, but it also takes the voices of that community to stand up for themselves, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that, touch upon it as we go through the talk. So I'll let Deepa introduce herself a bit more.
Thanks, Rachel. I think Rachel has covered a lot of the part where we started to work together, but let me just give you a bit of background on myself. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Capsule Arts, and I am a Dubai girl. I'm born and brought up here. My father came here in 1968, so I have seen the desert times to seeing all the construction happening. So for me, it's really nostalgic to see a country change so much. Like, I have moved, but without physically moving. You know, it's such a different horizon at the moment. So yes, my background is an interior designer. I always wanted to do interior design, so I did train as being an interior designer, and I was practicing interior design full time. But somewhere inside me, I knew I wanted to always run a company. You know, I always wanted to do a business. At that point, I did not know what kind of business I wanted to do. I didn't come from any family background. You know, being Indian, being Sindhi Indian, a lot of people have businesses in our community, but I did not come from any business acumen background, so I really just always had this drive and urge to do something for myself. So while I was working on interior design, I did do a lot of freelance interior projects. I did a lot of try my hand at doing different other creative projects, but nothing really worked. And one day I stumbled on doing arts for interiors, and I honestly loved it. I loved it. I felt so passionate about doing just artwork for interior projects and having this very specialization in doing one section of interior design, because I know interior designers do everything. They have to do MEP, FF&E, civil works, hardcore construction. Like, it's a lot, and I felt like my true love lied in doing the specialism in the arts industry. So I did start at the art studio, and that's exactly where I met Rachel. But really, oh, I'm sorry. Previously to that, I worked at a framing and a framing business where I actually really learned the trade of framing artworks and art production. So I thought that was a great experience. And then post that is when I joined the art studio, and that's where I met Rachel. And even from that point, when Rachel and I worked together, for me, I really felt that something is lacking. As Rachel mentioned, like, we really wanted a platform for working with artists, really, like, yeah. And I feel like our name derived from that as well. Like, Capsule Arts came from the fact that incubating artists, allowing them to have sustainable careers in artwork. So really, that's where our name even derived from. So yeah, my ambition has always been to do great design, like great artwork for great design projects, and really be known as an international art consultancy, like not local, not GCC, but really be compared to an international art consulting company. And really, my ambition has come to life, mainly because of my business partner Rachel, and like she said, we share the same vision, the same goals, we have the same working styles, we have our strengths, which we really play on. That's exactly what we focus on. And of course, I also feel like a lot of it is also to contribute to my husband. I feel like he always believed that we can do 100 times more and bigger, and I feel like having that belief in doing something really good for yourself, I think, it transpired after really being married. So, yeah, so from my side, yeah, and as Rachel mentioned, like, she focuses primarily on the creative aspect, and then I focus primarily on, like, the project. We just want to also touch upon the practical side of how we work. So, we are art consultants, and the way we work is multi-pronged. Like, we could actually be working with hotel owners, developers, real estate people who would come directly to us, and they want to engage us directly, which is honestly the best way we prefer to work, because this way it cuts out all the middle people and wanting to have too many opinions. So hence we know that there is one person, one decision-making authority. So that's why we love to work directly with the real estate or the developers or owners. But that's not always the case. It's a projects world. It's a contracts business. So we also get tied into working as a sub-consultant to an interior designer. So when you're working on the hospitality, and we primarily work on hospitality projects. So when we work in the hospitality industry, you have the owner, you have the interior designer, you have the contractor, you have a project manager or a procurement agent. So we could come in from anywhere. We could come in from the owner side, we could be a sub-consultant to the interior designer, or we could come in from the contractor and procurement agent. And really, our business thrives on doing design through to execution. And the main reason why we really love working in that fashion also is because when we are the ones working with the artists and conceptualizing the art package, we want to translate it to doing the actual execution. Because if someone takes our art package, again, being the industry, they seem to like prepare a design booklet and then it's tendered to different parties. But if they tender the artwork, you never know how they may translate it, whether they go to the right specified artist or they decide to go somewhere else. So that's why we feel like we have more control if we're going from design all through to execution. This is how we work. And the biggest thing for us also is what we do as a business is we are kind of shielding and protecting the artists. Now that we are obviously 10 years in the business, we do have the capacity of offering the clients securities, bank guarantees. We're taking on legal risks for you. We have to give like a defects liability insurance for 1 year. We have to do professional indemnity insurance for 10 years. And if you're an artist working by yourself, sometimes artists refrain from getting into such heavy contracts. And we take that, we take that as a business for you. So when we work as an art consultant and we're in between the owner or the client and yourselves, we manage this project. We manage that in the middle for you.
We've even had artists lose a project because they didn't have a trade license.
Yeah.
Because the paperwork protocols are so strict for some of these construction projects that everything's going good, and then they're like, oh no, we can't give them the job because they don't have a trade license.
Yeah. And also, being a commercial interior design project, there are so many stakeholders involved. Sometimes we have to have 4 approvals. You'll have to have 4 people you'll have the operator give an approval, the interior designer has an approval, the owner has an approval, the commercials team have to give an approval. So many people are there. So we're kind of like managing, navigating, so that, as an artist, you get to focus on the artistic process, without having to worry about so much paperwork. We also end up doing specifications, checking all the technical requirement for a project. Most of the members in our team are trained interior designers or engineers or architects. We then ensure that we are also not just supplying an artwork just to put it on a wall. If we are designing something which is very highly integral and has, we have to coordinate with the contractor, the lighting consultant, but the carpet guy needs to go in before that, or the weight of the wall, we take that management for you. And we, of course, one of the biggest things is we really advocate for authenticity. So really not wanting to exploit anyone's style, really wanting to have the artists display their work the way it's meant to be. So really we take care of that as a creative responsibility as well. Yeah. Would you like to add anything to that?
Just that obviously, like Deepa said, our primary projects are hotels and restaurants, but we have also worked on airports, universities, hospitals, offices, residential projects, and we'll talk about this in a bit more detail, but a project length can be anything from 3 to 6 months up to 5 years.
Yeah.
Royal Atlantis was 5 years. We had 3 babies between us during the lifespan of that project. So I think it's important to know, these aspects of a project. And, I think artists are very used to the concept and the model of having a gallery represent you. But when you're working with an art consultant, what an art consultant can do for you is different. It's on a different level, and it will obviously be very commissioning heavy led, perhaps. But it's a completely different ball game in terms of what it is that we do in that relationship. So I think we can go on to the next. Right. So when I'm working with the design team, how do we select an artist for a project?
Doesn't fall off your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to. Okay. So, I mean, what you guys are obviously interested in is how do we select an artwork? How do we select an artist for a project? And so what it is that I do with the design team is from the very beginning of a project, we develop an art strategy. How are we going to approach this project, and how are we going to build an art narrative? Art is very subjective, and as Deepa said, when you're sitting in a room and you've got 4 people that you need to get approvals from, their understanding of art and their appreciation of art will all completely differ. Especially if you've got, one of the people could be giving you approval is from the client's design team. That's great, but you could also be dealing with a contractor. Or maybe they're not maybe there's someone in the room who isn't the approval person, but they have influence, and they sit there and they're like, they don't understand art, and they, give their 2 pence in as well, because it happens. So what it is from the very beginning with the art narrative is, for us, it's developed with 3 pillars in mind. It's the design, which comes primarily from the interior designers. You know, we'll be looking at the design language they've used, the materiality they've used, and what the design story is that they've been inspired by. Then we have to look at the brand. You know, especially in hospitality, the brand is very, very important. You are going to design, you may have the same art narrative, the same inspiration, take treasures from the deep. You know, that's the kind of design narrative we get from the interior designers. You're going to treat that narrative very differently if you're looking at a 4 Seasons resort than if you're looking at a Rove hotel, right? So the brand is absolutely key. You really have to look at that. And then destination. Placemaking is a huge thing when it comes to design and hospitality. So how are you going to bring that destination into the art narrative? How are you going to make it localized? Again, treasures of the sea. You're going to be dealing with a very different concept here in this region than if you were looking at a hotel in the Maldives. So it's how do you bring that locality and how do you bring that destination into the design as well? So when we create an art narrative, it's about these 3 aspects. And it's about space to inspire. How do you create that emotional connection between the guest of that hotel and the artwork that they're going to see throughout their stay? So that's kind of really the key aspects for us. And that becomes the anchor and the decision-making power. You know, anytime a client is like, oh, I don't like that. Okay, why don't you like it? You know, that this talks to the story that we discussed, and it helps us create a dialogue with those who are approving the package to nail it and actually get the selections that are right for the project.
It just takes out the subjectivity from it, you know, because everyone has an opinion of their own. Like Rachel said, anyone will walk into the room and give an opinion and walk away, and it steers the conversation. Oh, perhaps what he said is correct, but we are trying to avoid that, because if we have a story, if we have a narrative that we're working with, that really then helps with the experiential journey through the project. You know, so many brands actually are really focusing on this aspect because they're engaging their operations team to actually walk the guests through the beginning of the project, you know, as they enter the hotel, through to the rooms, as to what was the story behind the artwork that was created. That's now become such a trending aspect. Now, that's like a huge thing where the hotel operators, marketing teams want. They want their guest experience team to actually talk to the guests, to talk about the artwork that they're actually fixing on the wall. And this comes from us creating this narrative, creating this storyline.
That guest experience is so important. All the hospitality industry are looking at the moment is how do they differentiate themselves from their competitors. And we believe artwork is a really key way of doing that and how it engages with their guests and the brand. Okay, so this is one of our favorite topics in the office. When is a copy a copy? Yeah. Now, for ourselves within the industry, we see a lot of other companies or a lot of designers or contractors. There's a lot of copying that goes on within the industry, and it's not just within this region. It's something we see worldwide. It's something the fashion industry sees, you know, using an artist's work for window dressing or on a t-shirt, and it's something that we see a lot within the hospitality industry. Now, it's difficult because a lot of the time we're not appointed to go in and develop a concept and select an artwork and do that whole process and curate the collection. Sometimes we're coming in and the art intent has already been set by an interior designer. Interior designers love Pinterest. They love it, right? So they pick something off Pinterest and they put it in their render or they put it in their presentation, and then that's sold to the client, and the client loves it, and they only want what they see in the render. They have no concept of, can it actually be manufactured, not only at their budget, but can it be manufactured? We had a project once, and the interior designer had took an artist's work off Pinterest, an artist that we know and is in our library. She's based in Europe, and she works with very delicate layers of porcelain. And her artworks are typically 1 meter by meter. all handmade. They had stretched it to a wall that was 8 meters high, right? Now, that would be beautiful. To be able to make that could be beautiful. I'm saying could be because maybe it would be too much for the space. But the client, it wouldn't be a good investment for the client to spend the amount of money it would take to have that piece in their lobby. So you've got to remember that whatever the developer is spending on the art, it's an investment into their property. And it takes hotels years to become profitable. Absolutely years. So the money that they are investing in art is a big investment for them. Now, we have a lot of arguments around that. You know, if you're investing in artists and named artists and credible work, that actually is not a depreciating asset. It becomes an appreciating asset for them, and it should become part of their portfolio and their asset management. And that's part of our selling job, you know, to do that job. But we have to look at practicalities. So, you know, interior designers, they'll have these like lovely ideas and they'll sell an idea in an interiors. And then they may, you know, we may look at it and we may go, you are not going to be able to afford that artwork in a guest room because it's a 3D artwork. You're not going to be able to afford it in your budget, you know? So we have to come up with strategies and ways that we can make that work. And we'll give a few examples as we go through. So for us, you know, we also get things like, there was another hotel we worked on and it was good. It wasn't a copy. However, it was an image that an interior designer had taken off Pinterest, and then they had Photoshop manipulated it within an inch of its life. And it was a really interesting image, but to be able to recreate that image was so complex. You know, I think we ended up going into Dira and buying some fabric and doing a kind of flat lay with a photographer with high resolution, and then we did our own digital manipulation of that image. So we're often confronted with these complex artistic issues that we need to resolve. But we have to ask the client a lot of questions. We have to manage their expectations. So when they tell us, no, this is what's in my render, we'll come to this as an example later, but this, I don't know if any of you know, but this is a UK artist called Simon Allen. He's very established. It's a very high-end piece of work. It's all gold leafed. He sells a lot. I think the original piece is like $10,000.
No,
More?
More. It's quite expensive.
No one's going to put an artwork of that expense in a guest room. Right? We'll talk to you about how we did that. But this piece has been copied, by the way, by a lot of different people in many different iterations. We've seen multiple times. And I've seen this artwork multiple times in an interior designer's render. But what we have to do is go, okay, how does this relate to the design story? How does the materiality relate to the design story? What they were interested in was how it related to sand and the sand dunes, right? So then we have to say, okay, well, this piece originally is inspired by this aspect. How can we take that and how can we develop it forward? What is it that you like about it? Okay, you like that it's a 3D artwork. You don't want a framed canvas above the bed. Okay, we get that. You like that it's got the undulations. You like that it's got that touch of gold. We have to unpick what it is that they like about that artwork, and how can we then develop, another artwork inspired by that. His original works are made by wood carvings. They're all carved by hand. Okay, is the wood important to that? No. The wood aspect you don't really see. That's not important to a guest room. So we have to ask questions all the time, and that's how we're able to unpick and start to understand, okay, how do we take your inspiration and your intent, and how do we develop it and move it forward so that we're selecting an artwork or an artist that then is not a copy. So that's kind of our real kind of back to basics that we have to do there. And for us, it's very important to us that we don't copy another artists' work. And we've actually got in, like, okay, not arguments, but we've actually got in very challenging conversations with clients about the fact that we will not do that. And because you know, right? If you see an artwork and you go, oh, that's just like such and such's work. And then someone's like, oh, but it isn't. You're like, yeah, but I think it is. And that tells me that that's too close. And you get this sick, icky feeling in your stomach, in the pit of your stomach. And that's not what we got into this game for. And it's not what we do. And we know other people in the industry that do. And we really, really try and steer away from that as much as we possibly can.
Exactly. And I feel like we've also, with the fact that we are now 10 years of our business and we have so many projects under our belt, I feel like we do now have a little bit more power. I'm not saying we didn't have the power before, but now the client is ready to listen, to not want to copy. And at the same time, we are, as being one of the leading art consultants here, we are getting a lot of RFPs from all the projects that are in the market. And then we also advise them, by the way, this brand is doing this, like this piece is trending and we can see it on every designer's specification. We don't want you to do that. We want you to steer away. Ourselves, what we tend to do is, if you go onto our website and see each of our projects, the clients are getting exclusive designs without really signing an exclusivity contract with us. Because we as art consultants really don't want to copy anybody's work. We don't want to copy our own projects inside to another project, We don't have like a catalog of artworks that we're just taking and like proposing to our clients. We're actually making a narrative for every project. We're trying to make it design exclusive for every client that we meet. We're making sure it pertains to the operator and the brand guidelines, and we make sure that every time we suggest something different for all our projects. So for us, really, it's one of our values now, being authentic and not wanting to copy. It's hard. It's the design business. It's really, really hard. We still know furniture designs getting copied, carpet designs getting copied.
Yeah. Artworks for an artist getting copied into a carpet design.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot.
So really, I feel like, with more and more projects we work on, the clients will see that value then we bring to the project itself. That's the value we bring to the clients.
So I just wanted to introduce you to a few members of our team. Elise, who's here with us today. Elise, put your hand up. So Elise is our art curator. She's been with us in the role since 2022, so since last year. And some of you may already know her. So she is the main person who is the contact with artists. And she manages and updates our library. She's responsible for research and development within the team because we're always looking for new artists to work with. We're always looking for new production methods, because that's another key thing. Sometimes we'll work with an artist and they'll develop a design, and then we'll work with them, with our manufacturers, to realize that design. So we really hold that hand through that process, especially if it's, especially with sculptures. We have worked with, I think we worked with Leila Juma, an Emirati artist, and she designed a sculpture, and then we managed the process of the production with the production unit for that. So Elise is here with us today, and I said she's the main point of artists for updates. I'll just explain who a couple of the other people are in the team. So our art consultant team here, Azza and Sylvia and Lordy are senior art consultants within the team, and they design the packages. Argavan is our senior art production designer, and she is like an art consultant, but she specifically works on custom designs and commissioning. So anything that is a lot more commissioned based, and the artist is heavily involved in design developing. She does a lot of sculptures, we're doing a lot more in-house design, and then we work with artists perhaps for an aspect of that, like we're doing a big installation of these beautiful gold metal leaves in the Marina Mall in Abu Dhabi, and we've designed that in-house, but the intricate detailing, patterning on the leaves, she's worked with an artist for that. So it's a collaborative process. And then the project coordinators that you see on that side, they're the team that will be involved in execution. So while Elise is your main artist contact, once you get into actually being involved on a project, it will be the art consultant side that will deal with the design, and then it will be the project coordinators that will be there from an execution perspective. But just some of the things that Elise would be needing from you, and we'll go into more detail of this later on, but an up-to-date artist portfolio is key. A bio photograph. When we put an artist forward in a project, we always put a picture of that artist and works from their portfolio in there, because we want to show to the client, look, this is the artist portfolio. Even if we've developed a concept in-house and we're saying, look, this artist has a skill set that matches to this, or this artist is going to bring something extra to this concept, we will show the client that portfolio within our presentation. Obviously, once we're appointed. Your biography, your artist statement, and your CV. I will talk a bit more about an artist CV, but it's very important. High resolution images of your work. Again, if we're putting you forward for a project, if we have all of this information to hand, sometimes the way we're working on project proposals, it's so quick. We don't have time to reach out to you at that moment. So if we have that information within our library, it helps us be far more efficient, and it helps us, the more information we have from you, the more chance you've got of getting a project. Availability of your works and pricing. You know, do you have a list of available works that are currently for sale? You know, in your price list, do you have information about the artwork medium, the title, the dimensions, if it's framed? Do you provide industry discounts to art consultants? I'll tell you now, galleries give art consultants a discount. Do you have any particular payment terms and conditions? Are you represented by a gallery? Because artists may have gallery representation, and that may completely differ. They may be represented by a gallery for a particular territory. They may only be represented by a gallery for a particular collection of works. Perhaps if they've been in an exhibition, just that collection of works is with the gallery and other things are separate. We've also worked with artists where anything which is a commission is not part of the gallery structure. But if it's something in an existing collection, then it is. So there are all these kind of business things that you need to consider, and if we have that information, it helps us understand how we can do business with you, because at the end of the day, we're talking about business, right? Are you open to commissions? Someone might say, no, I'm not interested in commissions. This is my available works. You're welcome to sell any of them, but I don't want to do any commissions. Some of you might say, I'm open to commissions, but I only want to do a commission that's in my style. I don't know how many of you here know Matthew Ryder, but Matthew Ryder is such an artist as that. He's like, this is my style. If the client wants something in my style, absolutely. And then, because the other option is, okay, you have as an artist a skill set. You have a skill set that you can use to pay your bread and butter. If you may be the kind of artist that's like, do you know what? I have my unique style, but I also have a talent and a skill set, and I want to be able to make some money off that. And you can manage the two simultaneously. They don't have to be exclusive. But what's important is that we know that, you know? So we know I'm not going to bother Matthew with an inquiry unless it's something that they really want him. We worked with the environmental agency in Abu Dhabi, and Matt was the perfect artist for that project. We worked with him and the agency. He got special permission to paint plein air in a restricted nature reserve out towards Liwa, and he went and he painted for like a week or so, and then he came back with his studies and he created 2 beautiful original paintings with oil, completely him, his style. The client wasn't involved at all. They were like, we love your portfolio. This is exactly what you do. Go ahead and do it. You know, and that's what he did. So for us, we can work with an artist in any way, but you need to be clear with us what you're interested in, because then we don't waste your time and you don't waste ours as well. Are you open to doing prints of your work? You know, sometimes we're dealing with limited budgets, but there's still a way to be able to do that. When we worked on the Hive Co-Live project, they really wanted to bring in local artists, but they didn't have the budget for original works. But we put local artists in every single artwork in that project. And we did it in all of the rooms, and we developed two, it's basically like a residential community, but it's a fully furnished apartment, and we developed two collections. So when you moved in, you could say, oh, I want this collection, or I want the other collection, and then those were the artworks that went into your living accommodation. Every single artist in that project was local, and they were prints. This information is so important for Elise to have and for the library to have, because it allows us to present you as an artist in a way that you're happy to work and with your portfolio. So if you're open to commissions, it allows us to pitch you within like perhaps concept development, and it allows us to pitch you in line with your portfolio and your skill set, as I mentioned. Now, one of the key things is the pricing, because if we have an idea of the pricing, then we have a good idea if we should even present you for that project in the first place, right? Information here, honestly, guys, is key. That's the main thing. And then, well, most likely what happens then is if we have that information at hand, we don't need to bother you for that first rounds of presentations. And then what we're able to do is pick up the phone and say, guys, we've presented your work for such and such project. They really like it. You're in. And then we can have a more detailed conversation about how we're going to make that a possibility. One of the last things I will say is it's also really important to understand your availability, right? Stephanie's here. We work with Stephanie quite a lot, but at some point Stephanie's had to say to us, guys, I still want to work on projects, but I am back to back for 6 months, right? That's an amazing position for an artist to be in, you know? And we've even then had conversations with Stephanie where we said, okay, have you considered that you need to partner with another artist where you direct it and then they support you with the execution? Because textiles is very time consuming, you know? So we're able to have those kind of conversations, but we also know, okay, client, by the way, you want this artist? We have to get this confirmation now. We have to sign the dotted line, and Stephanie will be able to work for you. She'll rack it up in her work schedule, but she's that in demand. We can use that to sell you harder. You know, sometimes it will work. The client will be willing to wait for you. Sometimes it's not. But we need to have that kind of information. Now, I talk about this library, right? We have almost 700 artists in this library. Now, they're not just in the GCC, but you can see a huge volume of the artists we work with are GCC based. And that's because we're going for I don't know, global domination. We're going for international status as an arts consultancy. But one of our differentiating aspects in this region is our connection to the art scene and is our connection to the local artists. We worked on Alula's International Airport. Now, Alula as a destination is working with very high caliber international artists. The way they are promoting and branding the destination arts and culture is incredible, and they really are true patrons of the arts. You experience art from the minute you land to the minute you leave. And that's what the airport collection does. Now, the airport collection is a combination of high-profile artists. It's also got some more up-and-coming artists. Because we don't have a roster of artists that we represent, it means we're able to go to the artist that's right for the project. We're also able to buy work through a gallery. So we're not limited. We don't say, oh, we can't work with that artist because they're represented by Laurie Shabibi Gallery. No, we can do that. So as you can see, we do have a big onus on artists within this region. It's our USP as an international arts consultancy, but we do need to work with artists from other places. And, you know, when we say artworks, we do also do accessories as well for an interior design projects. But from an arts perspective, you know, we're looking at paintings, sculptures, photography. We're looking at mixed media works. We're looking at textile, illustration. You know, we even have a project now where we have animation and digital moving imagery. We have light art. We have glass. So our library is extremely varied, and it needs to be that because, as Deepa said, not one project for us is the same. So yes, we may work with an artist one time in a year, or we may work with an artist 3 or 4 times in a year, but that really depends on how that artist is willing to work and the kind of work they've got in their portfolio and how it matches to the projects that we're doing. So I'm just going to give you a few case studies here of projects that we did. So Ana Zanik is a Croatian artist who's based in the States. This was a really good opportunity in that we were working with the interior design company LW Design. They're one of the premium interior design companies based out of the region and working on international projects. This is the render of the hotel room. And this was a project where we weren't involved at the beginning. We didn't develop the art narrative. They, as interior designers, developed the specs. And they had specified the work of Ana Zanik, and they had put the work into the render. So the client had seen this. This is what they wanted. Now, Ana is an established artist and has a very kind of prolific portfolio. So we spoke to her, and we've now worked with Ana on several projects. She's very professional. She actually takes very high resolution images, photos of her paintings, and this is a print on canvas. And we were able to broker that relationship with her, come to a financial deal where we were able to reproduce her work across all the guest rooms, right? So this is a fantastic example for us of how there was an artist who was specified. There was no need to copy the work. There was no need to ask all those questions. What is it that you like about the work? You know, straight away we could say, okay, we can make this work. And how we appointed her on that project by paying a flat fee.
No, so we actually ended up paying her like a original commissioning fee for creating this particular work for her, because she didn't, you know, we didn't, again, like I said, going back to the whole exclusivity factor, we didn't want to just pick up an image from her portfolio. She created the work for us, so we commissioned her for an original piece, and we advised her how many copies we were going to do. So I believe there were actually 2 designs for the headboard artwork.
There was.
So she had to make 2 originals for us, and then they had to, let's say, you know, I'm just giving a number right now because I don't have it in my head, but approximately around 200 to 250 rooms split into 2. So we had to pay her royalty per print we did. So again, from our side as well, we're extremely honest in our relationship. We make sure we are giving the artist the right quantification that we will reproduce the work to, and also have like a binding agreement to say, that's it, it's being reproduced for this project. We have the digital art file, it will never be reproduced again after that. So.
Next. I'm going to let Deepa talk about this in a lot more detail, because Deepa was very instrumental in brokering this deal with Simon Allen.
Yeah, so this is for one of the upcoming hotel projects, extremely established operator, big holding company for the owner. Again, you know, going back to the thing I said earlier, so many stakeholders, you know, and we have been appointed in this project via the contractor. Now the contractor has the full scope, so we're getting engaged through the contractor, but we have the stakeholders to take approval for, and the contractor's like, that's it, just give me this, what's in the spec, I don't care anything about authenticity, I need to fulfill my contract. You cannot change the contract, you can't increase the price, you can't decrease the price, you can't change the timeline. So many factors were being put on us, you know, and we kept pushing back to say, we're not copying this. We were not going to take any responsibility for any copyright infringement in this project, and we refuse to copy this person's artwork. So since we refuse, we don't just say refuse, we actually refuse and we give solutions. We say, here you can, work with this artist and you can work with this artist. And they're like, nope, we just want this, exactly this. And we said, agreed, there will be a variation that will be applied because we've already tied into our contractual value. So then we actually got an addendum to our contract when we then ended up speaking to Simon Allen. And actually Simon Allen was extremely, you would think that sometimes established artists are snobbish or they are like extremely protective, or there are lots of multiple people you have to speak to before you reach to them. But actually it was such a seamless process. He agreed, he obliged, he knew the exact project, he knew the details. We gave him the exact quantification of how many pieces they were going to be reproduced to. He agreed to make a prototype for us, and he's aware that the prototype will be flown from UK to Dubai, and then we are actually creating the mold for it, and then it'll be reproduced multiple times. So he's going to give us all the specifications, all like the hanging hardware, the finish it's meant to be. And we were actually so proud that we were able to then execute the project right through the original artist. And it gives you such a satisfactory feeling having executed a project, knowing it went, the client accepted your advice, they accepted our expertise, and we're moving forward now in the project. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So now it's actually ongoing, the production is underway, and we should be installing that in the summer.
I mean, you get the likes of, say, a designer like Jonathan Adler doing a collaboration with H&M, to make an affordable collection, an editioned collection. It's the same thing, that it's a way of doing business, and it's a great option.
And the mold will have his signature.
Yeah, that's his signature on that last
the
image.
mold will have his signature in it as well.
Yeah. So Lama's here. She's on the stairs. So Lama is an artist that we have worked with for years on multiple projects. And Lama is definitely one of those artists who has a very versatile skill set. So we have projects where we have worked with Lama and it is completely, her style. And then we have other projects where it's very much a commission and there's a brief. In fact, I would say, Lama, that your illustrations have become such a specific style that we've done so many times now that the clients have a lot of faith in her ability, and they give Lama like carte blanche to draw directly on their walls. And it's because the clients have built that relationship with us and with Lama and have that trust issue there, which is fantastic for us, and Lama has been actively involved and engaged, talking directly to a client when it's appropriate to a project as well. This was the Russell Keimer Movenpick hotel that we did, and it's a beautiful, enormous artwork in the reception area. And it's an illustration on the wall, and then there are frames, and within those frames there's more color applied there. This was actually done as a digital artwork that was then printed as a wallpaper. But then if you look at this is the gastronomy restaurant in Atlantis, which has recently been shortlisted for a Commercial Interior Design Award. And Lama did blackboards throughout the entire restaurant, and they were all hand illustrated. Now we have to go through a process of approvals and showing those designs to the client. But I think after we got so far, there were some extra blackboards they needed Lama to do some work on. I think that was far more like, take it away. But at the same time, Lama has worked with us on the new So Uptown Hotel, which is due to open later this year. And the artwork that's in the reception area is a digital collage. It's a very kind of romanticized landscape view. And it doesn't look anything like Lama's style, but she has a skill set that she's able to use, and we're able to, give her business from that perspective because she has an artistic eye, she has a skill set, and we're able to have that kind of relationship with her. So Lama's a good example of an artist that has a style and she also has a skill set. And you can charge different prices, for your work in that. If something's your signature style, charge a different price to something that uses your skill set. And then Stephanie, I mentioned. Stephanie also worked with us on the Movenpick Hotel in Ras Al Khaimah. This is for La Mer, which is also now a shortlisted project for the Commercial Interior Design Awards, and Bubble Shams, which has also now been shortlisted. So again, Stephanie is an artist that we have worked with for multiple commissions. And again, I mean, Stephanie is an artist. I don't think I know many artists that actually have her own Instagram profile, and then she has her projects profile on Instagram, because, you know, Stephanie does a combination of her work, which is her exhibition work and her main practice, but she's also very open to working on commissions. And I think actually in many ways, Stephanie, as you've developed your working styles and collections, have kind of definitely starting to merge as she's developing more techniques and more skills there. So that's two examples of two international artists that we work with, and two local artists that we work with on a continuous basis. So Deepa's going to talk you through a little bit more about how a bit more detail about how we work with artists, and perhaps it might give you a bit more of an idea as to how you could work with us.
Yeah. So Rachel, of course, touched upon the fact that, you know, it's very important for us to have full information of your portfolio, but really how do we apply that? What do we do once you've given us your portfolio? So quite honestly, the way we work is there are two ways of us working. One is the client has reached out to us to be the art consultant on a project. And, you know, most times when it's art consultancy, it's either 2 years before the actual hotel's construction has been started, or they are planning to open. So we're actually in the project in the very, very early stages of the project's life cycle. So what we then do is, once we get appointed as an art consultant, we build upon our story, which we've spoken about. And in that storytelling aspect, we then showcase the artist's portfolios, and we start really building up on the concept from the imagery from the artist portfolios that we have. It could even be our own in-house design or our own in-house concept, keeping in mind an artist that we think we can work with to execute that concept. Or it could be your own original authentic style in the project itself. And again, we touched upon this very briefly before. When you submit our portfolios, it's really important for us to understand your price point, because one of the biggest deliverables for us in our art consultation, one of the first deliverables is to give the client a budget. So when you give the client a budget, we have to factor in what is the price of that artist, or we have to advise the client how much to spend. So we are at this point building a budget, and in that budget we are keeping in mind all your price range. So
we have to guide the client, because quite often they don't have a budget, or they don't know how to put a budget together for art, and their expectation of what they can get is not aligned with their budget. I mean, I've even stood and argued with a client where they've said, oh, the artist will do it for exposure. I'm like, no. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So again, that goes back to that advocating for an artist when they're not in the room, you know. So
even for us now, having done so many projects, the clients are reaching out to us to say how much to spend for a 5-star property, how much to spend for a 4-star, how much to spend for a 3-star project, where should we be putting the artwork? Should we, in a 5-star project, you tend to have artworks in the toilets and in the bedroom, and sometimes in the guest rooms you have above the headboard and on a desk. This is a 5-star property. But depending on a 3-star project, they probably have only a budget to do artwork above the headboard, So really, we then, as we are doing art consultancy, we start from this beginning where we are then making sure all our selections are really aligned to the client's expectations. We don't want to be designing something that in the end the client says, I can't afford it. So really, we engage you at that. We start engaging you, I would say, your portfolio at that initial stages of the project. I know we've heard a lot of feedback from a lot of artists, like we send out the RFQs, we send out inquiries to ask for your pricing, but even we're at such an early stage of a project, we also do not have this information of knowing, will you be awarded the project at this point? So what we tend to do is we come out extremely clear. We say we're an art art consultant, the project is 2 years away. We're recommending you for this particular project, and maybe 2 years later, we could get through the execution of the project. Or the other way that we actually engage you is when we're actually working on the art production side. So let's say the client has not engaged us as an art consultant, and they already have an initial package or with some specifications already outlined, and they're coming to us to do art production. Now this could be anywhere between 3 to 12 months prior to opening a hotel, which is honestly the best way, because that way design's not getting outdated. We're being more up to date with the trends that are going on or with the manufacturing ability. So at this point, we actually prefer working on projects that are more closer to the opening date versus more in development phase, you know, because many issues can arise in a project that's development phase. We may have quoted a budget, but inflation comes through, or you know, people become more established artists and their price range changes. So we always advocate having us come in 12 months before. You know, this is the best time for us to be in. And again, we could also ourselves be executing a package that we had designed 2 years ago. So we could be at this second type of working where we have a project on hand, or we are tendering for a project, and it's more closer to the actual execution of the project. And sometimes this is the point when we have to take on design and build projects. When I say design and build, it means that an outline of a design is there, we have to give a price, and we have to be locked into that contract. You know, we can't change the contract. So for us, that is the second way of us working.
I think pricing, and we're going to get on and talk about pricing in a lot more detail, but negotiation is really normal in this industry.
Yeah.
And it's inevitable. You know, it really is. And I think while we'll negotiate with you, I think it's also really important to know that our negotiation on the other side with the client is far tougher. Yeah. It's far tougher. And, you know, we're fighting for the integrity of the artist, the integrity of the artwork, and the quality of the production. And it's a constant kind of conversation that we're having to have.
And as mentioned to you, I feel like artists are then sheltered with so much that we have to face. Sometimes a project is delayed so much that we are yet, you know, our projects team are engaged in a project throughout. But the project has gone on hold, or a project's construction timeline has slowed down, but then we're still billing up our costs, right? We're still running the project for the client, so we're still doing that, whereas you just, as artists, get paid that one-time fee or that one invoice that you have raised, not any other additional costs. So for us, it's really, you know, we try to bring you in at the right time so that you are then sheltered from all these issues in a project.
I would also say our finance manager sometimes, with Deepa and I, when we're looking at the payments list, and our finance manager will be looking at what payments to release, and there's always a conversation of that's an artist. You know, she'll go in hard and she'll negotiate on payment terms, negotiate on releasing payments for a supplier who's more of a manufacturing unit. But when you're dealing with an artist, you know, often that relationship that we have, because we understand your outlays, we understand that you need to buy materials. So we have that understanding. We come from that perspective that we understand. So we're often, you know, we're able to have those conversations with an artist so that we're able to kind of help manage that with you as well. So,
but like we urge you to understand our perspective as well. Like, we are working on these huge projects which could be in tender. So in case if we are reaching out to you for a, you know, for an RFQ or for a pricing point, we always, like I said, we always will be transparent to say we have a project in hand or project not in hand, or perhaps we could be doing 3 quotations, you know, because this is, again, for us, we have to also ensure that it is in the end profitable in the way we are working. So if that's the case, then we know, and if that's the case, then we will always inform you if you were not awarded a project as well. So it's really a contract scale.
yeah.
So moving on to the next one, how to price your work. And many a times artists have come to us and asked us how to price their work. honestly, we also feel like we don't want to take the responsibility of how to price your work, but at the same time, we can offer you guidelines as to how to price your work. Especially, we feel that again, Dubai, you know, the way Dubai is right now, there are only these high-end blue chip galleries, so everyone seems to be benchmarking themselves to these high-end galleries, but not necessarily all the artists are blue chip. So really, being practical in the way you actually approach how to price yourselves. So think of yourself as a company, all right? What would a company need to pay? You need to pay your cost for rent, utilities. You may need to time for your material that you're using in a project, or for making that art piece. You may need to cost you for your own time as an artist, as a labor. Either it's yourself, or perhaps you have a studio assistant, or you're taking some other additional help from outside to cost up the cost of labor. And then there is a price for the originality of that concept. Is your work original? Are you designing something which is totally your concept, not inspired, or are you working with the brief that we have given you? Where we always get approached from projects with this very similar desert, sea, mountains,
Water.
these are the standard key words that we always have to build our narrative around. So have we taken inspiration from somebody else's work or storyline in order to really create the artwork? So is the artwork concept authentic to you? Is it your skill set? Have you really developed that skill set over multiple years? You could be working on a ceramic piece and you have mastered the skill of that, and right now to create that ceramic piece you may take like 5 hours to build it, versus in the 5 years ago it probably took you 20 hours to create that piece. So really, have you honed that skill? And as I mentioned, exclusivity. Are you as an artist, and we face this a lot of times. We have an artist who works with all galleries, and they have one body of works and they're selling to every gallery. So are you promoting yourself to be very exclusive? You could be working with all galleries, but perhaps you could be promoting a much more exclusive body of works with Capsule Arts or with another consultant. That makes you more exclusive, because we face this many times. We see the same artist being represented by multiple galleries. So really, are you keeping that exclusivity factor for yourself? Is your work represented by any established gallery, or has it been bought by a high profile client or any client? Really understanding, benchmarking yourself as to who you are as an artist builds into that, creating that price point. I also like to say, when you consider your administrative costs, your rent, your utilities, you can't charge your full rent to one client. You have to amortize it. You can't say, oh, I have to pay my rent this month, I'm going to charge you 12,000 dirhams. No, you cannot do that. You have to think about really how you amortize your costs in order to build up your pricing. The other aspect is, are you really working on just original works? Or do you want to make it limited edition prints or open edition prints of your work? So if you're making an original artwork, you know that you're going to sell that artwork one time and you'll get paid for it one time. But if you're making a limited edition of 50 pieces, you know that you will make 50 times that sale. Or even if you discount it, that you might sell 30 of them, you'll make 30 times that sale. Or if you're having an open edition, and we face this a lot of times with photographers. You've taken a photograph, it's taken, and if you sell that as an open edition, then why is it so expensive? Like really understanding how to build that into your cost.
It's like the idea of stock imagery versus, a limited edition that you're selling as a gallery print.
Yeah. Also, other factors to add in is, are you a full-time artist? Are you doing this as a side business? You perhaps have a full-time job, but you're doing this as a weekend thing. So for us also to understand, do you have the availability in order to execute a commission? Let's say a client comes to us and they want an office project in 6 weeks time, but you only work weekends. Really, can you build that into your price? Like, you really have to understand. But whereas if you are a full-time artist, we know that your traction or your working time would be much more faster. You can sell faster. Really, what is that how many pieces are you aiming to sell in a year? And just making sure we get all our points.
You have to consider, other artists' portfolios who have similar styles of work to you as well.
Yeah.
How are they marketing themselves? How is your competitor priced? Let's be honest, you could be up against somebody else who works in a similar style. How do you differentiate yourself to another artist? This is a big one for me. Are you selling? Are you selling work, and are you selling it at the price that you're putting? And if you're not, why not? Is it because your artwork is not of interest to people? Or could it be that you're not selling in a commercial scene because your work is not suitable to commercial projects? Like that's absolutely, we have to be very careful and sensitive here around, figurative works, for example. If something is quite like dark and morbid, a hotel is not going to pick that up. I actually stayed in a hotel in Tbilisi, and the artwork was so creepy in the room. It was a very artsy hotel, but the artwork was quite creepy. It was quite off-putting. So you have to think about that kind of thing. And I have a real bugbear that an artist will put their pricing so high, and then they've got a room in their house that is full of artworks, up to the brim, because they're not selling. Why? You're going to hold on to that artwork, and in 6 months' time, your practice is going to develop to such an extent that they're going to feel old, and someone's going to want something that you've just created that's new. So why are you holding on to it? Like, there's a lot of preciousness around someone's art. You've got to, I think, if you want to make money and you want to make a business out of this, you have to get rid of that preciousness. Let your artwork sell. Let it be on someone's wall. Let it market itself for you.
I feel like you need to just start selling. I feel like the moment you start selling more, and then the kind of profile that you build up on the sales that you've made, I feel like then you can start also building on your price. And as you mentioned, like for example, Lama for us, she is such a versatile artist. So when we even have a project's brief, sometimes she even reaches out to says, how much should I charge? And she's being very honest and open about it. So we of course try to think about the amount of time that she would spend in order to create that artwork, but also we then guide keeping in mind what budgets we do have, because perhaps we are at that stage in a project that we've already outlined a budget, and then this is the amount of funds we have available to us in order to create that artwork. So sometimes we can work together in this, but also it has to come from you. Like we don't want to be dictating any pricing to anyone. This has to come from your end when you're pricing your works.
And I think the overpricing of the work here, I think, is a real issue. We've had artists that have come fresh out of university, and they slap a price mark on it because they see other work selling, or other works of that kind of value, but the artist's CV or credentials does not support that. And honestly, often the pricing that we get from a European artist who is far more established and has a far more developed skill is cheaper than a local artist. Yeah. And that to me, a lot of the time, doesn't make sense. When you're looking at comparing with a more kind of up and coming young artist. So I think that element of preciousness needs to be reviewed. Yeah. From that perspective. It's very honest and a hard thing to say, but I do see that happening here in the region a lot. It used to be that somebody would put their artwork in an auction. Like, we haven't done them for a long time, but it used to be there was always a bloody art auction happening for some charity. And then because that artist had sold a piece at auction for an inflated price, because everybody loves charitable giving and patronage here, they were then like, oh, that's okay, that's now the price of my work. Well, that's not how it works. So those are all things that you need to consider. I did want to just touch upon the value addition right? So we, particularly now, are really doing a big push on marketing from our side, and our relationships with the artists we work with are really key to that. We relaunched our website this year. We now have an artist network section of our website, and the artists that we work with are now on there and showing the commissions that we've done or the artworks that are there in a project, to really kind of put the artist front and center of what it is that we're doing. We always name an artist that we work with, whether it's in our website or press information. For example, the Babel Shams Hotel we did, there was a lovely article that went into Identity magazine, and we worked closely with LW Design, the designers on that project, and gave information about the art. It was actually Identity's art issue, and actually we had a lovely section in there, and it talked about and named the artists that were involved in that project. We've been very active in posting. We're doing a lot more reels. Just the other day, Laura Esteban is a resident artist who we worked with on Royal Atlantis. We went to her studio and we did a lovely video showing her working process, how she's working. There'll be future posts coming up in the next day or two about Lama's work in the gastronomy, about Stephanie's work at La Mer, the big fishing net. I mentioned a minute ago, we've really campaigned and pushed hard for commercial interior design to add art categories into their awards. It's a big awards ceremony within the interior design industry across the region, and we felt it was about time that art had its specialized category. So through the campaigning we did, we've had that added. We were nominated last year. We won a highly commended award. We're hoping this year we can come home with the top prize, but we have been nominated for 4 projects. And then also Raneem is an artist that we worked with on Alula. She was actually nominated for an award ceremony in the UK. She was shortlisted and she actually won last week for the installation that she did for Alula Airport. So we're really looking to shine a spotlight on the artists that we work with. So that's also an added value addition for you as an artist working with Capsule Arts, and we hope to build on that and do even more. I just want to finish the presentation with some advice. Get serious. In a nutshell, if you're really interested in being an artist that makes money from their work and builds a sustainable career, get serious and consider yourself as a business person, because I've seen this time and time again, a really successful artist is also a marketeer. They're also a business person. Their communication is key. Their professionalism is key. So there are definitely things that you need to do. I would say a well-designed portfolio is essential. A digital one and a physical one, if you can also do that. You know, if you're going to turn up for a meeting, do you have samples of the different techniques that you do? Do you have artworks that you can make portable and you can go and show? Like if Elise says, okay, great, come in, do a show and tell with our team, present your portfolio so they understand your work better, they understand the things that you can do with us. Can you bring something in? Because nothing sells it better than seeing the physical work. If we can go into a meeting and show a physical sample of your work, it sells itself, you know? So how are you thinking about it from that perspective? It sounds like an obvious one, but oh my God, take good photos of your work. You will be surprised how many artists do not have this. Take good professional photographs. Invest in yourselves. That's one of the things we're trying to do also, is actually, like, we're photographing all our projects and then we aim to share those photos with those artists. So that helps to also build up your portfolio. An artist CV, right? My husband is not in the arts industry. and we'll go to a gallery. I'm trying to build my own collection, and I'll spend money on some art, and he'll say to me, why is it worth that much? Why are you spending this much money on art? And he'll also say in the second breath, I trust you, you decide what we're buying. But at the same time, I have to, it's your CV, you know. Did you study? Have you got any formal study education in arts? Is it a diploma? Is it a bachelor's? Is it a master's? Is it a PhD? Where have you exhibited? Sometimes you might not have gallery representation, but you might have been in a group show with a gallery. Sometimes galleries try out an artist by putting them into a group show before they actually take them on for representation. Do you have an artist statement? Do you have a biography that talks about you as an artist and what you're interested in your practice? Do you have statements that talk about the inspiration behind artworks? Do you name your artworks, or are they just called title 1 to 50? Do you have a professional, up-to-date website? There are lots of things like Squarespace now and whatever, which are very easy and simple to use. Do you have an Instagram account? Are you active on there? Instagram is such a visual medium. I mean, I know there's TikTok as well, but it depends, I think, on your generation and what you're interested in. But with Instagram, it's such a visual medium. Are you showing people how you work? Are you showing the process? People are nosy. People want to see, what are you up to? What are you doing? They don't just want to see, this is my artwork, still pictures. No, they want to see a bit of your life. They want to see what it is that you're creating. They want to see the process that you go through of researching, or your ideas, your sketching, your development. Share that. Do you have an email? Do you have an email? Are you active on it? Do you check it? Do you respond to things? What is your response time? How are you planning your week? Okay, if you're 5 days a week painting and 2 days a week with your family, like a weekend, where is your time for your admin? You need to be putting time into your administration, time into your marketing.
Elise will tell you, like, the amount of times we receive portfolios, no websites, no contact, no email, then they have an Instagram profile and we're like messaging them on Instagram, and it takes days for them to respond. It doesn't feel very organized or professional, you know, because we're then portraying that very professional reputation to our client. They want to know that we are working with equally professional people who are also managing the project with us. You know, it's all teamwork.
Yeah.
It goes in the front.
Do you have a studio space? Do you have a space where you can bring clients to see your work? Are you working out of your bedroom? Now, everyone does it. All artists do it at some point in time. But when are you going to take that leap? And when are you going to invest in you and have that studio space that gives you that level of professionalism and gives you that freedom to create? You know, you're not at home. You come. You're focused. I know for me, when I'm creating, the idea of like working on my kitchen table and then having to tidy it up and put it away. I mean, I once was in a talk with an artist in the UK. She's a very famous artist called Maggie Hamling, and she's very notorious for having quite a interesting personality. From the minute she starts a painting to the minute she finishes, she smokes like a chimney. And she doesn't have an ashtray, and she doesn't clear it up. I mean, I'm not advocating this, but she literally she finishes and it's just like cigarettes everywhere. And she's a Royal Academy painter. But anyway, do you have a space where you can come and you can focus and you can immerse yourself in art? So many artists talk about how they get lost in their practice. Do you have a space that allows you to do that? Are you investing in your future learning and development? Are you taking extra courses? Are you experimenting with new mediums? Are you participating in workshops? Do you want to do a higher education qualification? Who have you sold to? tell everybody, my work is in this hotel, I've sold work, I'm in this person's collection. These are all things that add to your CV. You know, if I buy an artist's work and I say to my husband, oh, but they were exhibiting at this fair and they did a residency here and their work's been bought by MoMA, instantly that value of that artwork goes up. So it's your credentials are so important when you're putting together your portfolio and you're selling yourself. Do you have a business plan? How do you want to grow your business? How are you pricing your strategies of your artworks? Like we've given you loads of strategies just today of how you can make more money from your work. I cannot stress enough networking. I mean, it's great, you guys are doing it, you're all here today. But if I think back to Dubai 10 years ago, 12 years ago, at the beginning of everything, there were very few opportunities for local artists. But those artists that got the opportunities, my God, they were everywhere. They were networking, they made friends with people, they made connections with people, they took opportunities. I don't create artwork anymore, but the amount of open calls that they have here, the amount of opportunities that you have to apply for, you know, art competitions, residencies, there's so many, like artists in the UK would kill for that many opportunities. How many things are you applying for? Are you actually engaging yourself in that? I mean, it's an obvious thing, but like now also Dubai has so many markets, you know. The jury's out on World Art Dubai, but there are so many other opportunities out there for you to go out and engage directly with your community and sell your work. And that's one of my lines here. I wrote, just do it. You know, I think Rabab is testament to that. She got a studio space, she just did it. And then she reached out to other artists have took that space. If I think back 10, 15 years ago and Dubai culture was developed and we felt that they're going to be a great resource to support artists, you know, okay, they're there to a level. I do believe that they have done some good things in terms of creating artist visas and things like that. They are not going to do it for you. We have to stop waiting for people to come in and develop a scene where local artists can thrive. You guys are in charge of that. You really are grassroots.
Yeah.
No one will do anything for you. You have a community. Like, you see all the time examples of like the young British artists, right? When I was growing up and I was doing my GCSEs in art and so on, you had the likes of Tracy Emin and Damien Hirst. They rose to the fame that they did because they all came together as students and went, let's go take over this unused warehouse in the Docklands. At the time it was completely abandoned in London. Let's put on an exhibition. They just did it. They banded together, they got their mates involved, they made it happen. And that gave them a viewing platform, and that gave them that leg to then get some serious attention from people.
For us as an art consultant, you know, sometimes there are very persistent artists. They're on top of their game, they're sending us portfolios, they're sending us updated emails, and the more you're in somebody's face, the more you can be able to sell your work.
Yeah.
So really, it is up to you.
But on the other side, I would also say, do your homework, right? Don't just go and approach any old gallery. You know, I know people that work at the third line, and the amount of random, you know, emails or random people they get come and knock on their door and say, show me, can you see my portfolio? And it doesn't get you anywhere. A lot of the time, because there isn't that research, there isn't there, oh, these are the artists they represent, and where do you fit into their portfolio? A gallery is a business. They will represent artists because perhaps they're from a geographical area, because they have a particular style, because because they have a particular stylistic interest, or they specialize with artists with a particular medium, or a regional artist. Yeah. Do your homework. Be purposeful in your marketing, and be purposeful with the people that you want to work with. Because if you just send a mass mailer out, it's business development. Mass mailers to the masses don't work. Do your research, do your homework, be specific about who it is that you want to speak to move your business and your career on to the next level.